in the country, bringing the total number to 4,361 here in South Africa. 7 new deaths being reported, bringing to 86 the total number of deaths. There's been a big jump in the number of tests, with over 8,600 tests being done in the last 24 hours. So good news for us. The total number of tests conducted to date now at 161,000. Let's take a look now at the situation around the country. As you can see there, a breakdown by provinces. The Human Sciences Research Council saying, though, that 1 in 2 South Africans believe they are at low risk of the COVID-19 virus. The HSRC conducting a survey on how South Africans are responding to the lockdown and the virus itself. In some instances, the research found that South Africans had no interaction with law enforcement officers during lockdown. Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, is saying it's worrying that some South Africans feel that they are not at risk of contracting the deadly virus.
It is indeed of concern that the study points to the fact that 1 in 2 people believe that they are low risk, because it tells us that we've got a lot more work to do on an ongoing basis. But it's good that research is telling that, so that we know as government that we have to intensify education. And for people to understand the point that Deputy Minister Pasha was making, that everyone is almost equally at risk. No one is more at risk.
Minister in the Presidency Jackson Mthembu says the national state of disaster remains in place. He urged South Africans to adhere to the lockdown restrictions that are in place. From the 1st of May, the country moves from level 5 to level 4 of the lockdown, which will see some industries reopen. Those industries include agriculture and restaurants, who will operate under strict restrictions. Government has put out a request for public comment on the risk-adjusted strategy before midday tomorrow. Now, let's take a look at some of those restrictions, putting out the map. And you must understand that when we say only some industries will be open, as we mentioned, there is going to be agriculture, hunting, forestry and fishing that's open. But those restrictions still apply for those businesses who open. So still emphasis on no local and interprovincial travel, except for those operations that are returning or support L4, that's the code name given for that, and there is to be absolutely no international travel. Let's move on now to the next. Let's see what else will be available and what is not going to be permitted. Movement, mandatory cloth masks. So irrespective of where you go, even if there is going to be an easing up of being allowed to exercise, that means no gyms, but this is of absolute essential to note. Cloth masks, there'll be screening, public and workplaces, especially those workplaces that are going to be opening. Hygiene and social distancing, that is still in place and mandatory. There's a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. So in terms of transport and logistics, as you can see, it'll be for cargo in domestic and neighboring countries with prioritization of essential goods. We are trying to spark the economy to get it going again. So this is what government has agreed on what is going to be open. So we go on now to the other categories, health and welfare. This is what we're seeing, that trade union essential staff will obviously, some of them have been able to move about, but there are 1.5 million more people who are going to be able to move about. So that will include the social workers, care and relief workers, funeral and cremation services. We talk about veterinary services, sanitation and pest control. Some of these things obviously weren't essential at the time, but it is becoming more and more important to deal with some of these areas. Wholesale and retail. So this is also of extreme importance to understand. A lot of people who have been hopeful and getting confused about, especially the sale of alcohol in bottle stores, that's not going to be open. We're going to see the return of tobacco sales, yes, which is worrying for some people. But these areas, food and hygiene, cleaning, protective and baby care. Lots of mothers complaining about the lack of availability of winter clothing, etc. for their children. Components for vehicles for essential workers. So if you have some car trouble, if you're an essential worker, this is going to be available to you. And the construction industry, they have been lobbying government to open them up as an industry to be able to work and be active. Critical maintenance and repairs, especially public work projects, these are going to be able to go ahead with critical engineering services as well. Mining and quarrying, this has been something that has been of discussion, that if we're going to get the economy going, these are just some of the sectors. So there will be 100% coal production for Eskom. We want to keep the lights on. We want to be, of course, not at level 4 in terms of the electricity shutdown and lockdown. We want to have a lockdown of 4, but with electricity going, and there'll be 100% open cast mining. So just a recap of what level 4 means, or which industries will be able to operate that under strict conditions. There has to be testing, there has to be protective equipment for those workers who are going back to work. 1.5 million, as I mentioned. Now, KwaZulu-Natal accounts for almost